It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting if you reach out to me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com. Super excited about today's guest. We have Greg Palast. Now, you can find him at gregpalast.com. He's come out with this new film, and I just watched it a couple of minutes ago. Okay, excellent stuff. The first scene, it's worth it just for the first scene alone, where he gets kicked out of this woman's house, and she's got a rifle in the corner, okay? Just for that, it's worth it. Vigilantes, Inc., America's new vote suppression hitman. Now, it's produced by Ryan Dawson and Martin Sheen. No, it's narrated by Ryan Dawson and Martin Sheen.
Rosario.
I don't even know who Rosario Dawson is. I've heard the name, but I have no idea who he is.
Oh, so you've been hiding from popular culture.
Yeah,
Rosario Dawson is the Mandalorian and the Star Wars Sin City, probably the number one actress in America and planet-wide, because she does all those Star Wars films. And so Rosario, this is Greg Palast. I just broke in.
That's right.
I'm just taking over. You can go home now, Ed. Okay, so Rosario Dawson is our narrator. It's worth the film just to hear her voice. And my favorite president, yes, Martin Sheen. President Bartlett is our producer. Yes, so go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you. Back to Ed.
No, you're fine, man. And I hate to admit this, but I thought Rosario was a man. That's how off the charts I am with Rosario Dawson. But I'm 62. I'm out of touch, okay? But the film has a bunch of screenings coming up in Madison at the
Barrymore Theater,
October 17th, in Atlanta, October 25th. And in between these two, it's a special showing for Jesse Jackson in Chicago.
Yes, I just spoke to the Reverend yesterday. It was his birthday.
Oh, God bless him.
Yes.
Now, Greg Palast, great to have you back here, but remind the audience, and we got you here during election season, so it is the time to have you. Remind the audience, who is Greg Palast?
Well, Greg Palast, if you don't know me, I've been investigating vote suppression for 25 years, but I'm an investigative reporter, and I was an investigative reporter, still am actually, for The Guardian out of London. You may know me from my book and then later film, The Best Democracy Money Can Buy, and my writings in Rolling Stone and Nation and other outlets investigating many things. But over these past 25 years, which is just sickening that I'm still working on this for 25 years, is something we politely call vote suppression, I was lecturing at Harvard, and they said, define vote suppression. I said, it's effing black people out of their votes. And that's what it's about. It's about shafting people of color, and now they've kind of widened out to a lot of women or young people out of their vote. And when I say they, and I'm completely nonpartisan, Ed, I will never support a candidate. I just don't. But these new vote suppression techniques, when they're taking out black people off the voter rolls by the hundreds of thousands, that's all coming out of the GOP. Because it's voters of color and the color is blue. And that's the issue. So vigilantes. And of course, a lot of people know me from the report they do for Democracy Now! And I was the investigative reporter for BBC television worldwide. And so now I came home from London to my own nation, where I was hoping to get a little bit of attention to the issues of our democracy. And so Vigilantes, Inc., which is, again, so let me tell you what the film is. Is that okay? Can I explain what the film is?
Yeah, but not only that, it's free. If you go to gregpalast.com, and it's an excellent film. I was just watching it.
Yes, so if you go to gregpalast.com, it's gregpalast.com, you can find out where I'm going to be, find out about the film, and watch the film, stream it for nothing. Also, that's because Leonardo DiCaprio has generously helped us create this site where fund us so we can give out the film for free. But the important thing is there's another site to get the film for free that Leonardo launched called SaveYourVote.com. Not save Ed's vote, not save our vote, not save my vote, SaveYourVote.org. 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 Now, why do I keep saying that? Because you not only get the film, but there's a place to check your registration, because people are shocked. They go to that site and they say, wait, I've been registered for 30 years, and my name ain't there anymore. So you can check your registration, tells you what to do if you've been removed from the voter rolls and it's too late to re-register. There's many things you can do. And so go to SaveYourVote.org. But here's really the film, so you know what we're talking about. First of all, it's a movie, so bring your popcorn. You know, it's not a PBS white guys in front of bookcases film. And like you say, the opening scene. So what it is it's called Vigilantes, Inc. because this year, for the first time on a national basis, we have a mass challenge of voters' right to vote by individuals. And as I can say, under the laws in 43 states, which have not been used since the Jim Crow era, I can say, don't let Ed vote. He doesn't really live in Florida. And in fact, Donald Trump's lawyer, Cleta Mitchell, has already, as we're speaking, challenged 10,000 voters in Florida. Ed, you might be one of them. Now, this film tracks down these vigilantes. This is a brand new thing organized by a Trump front group out of Texas. And what they do is that they give GOP operatives lists of people to challenge. So in the old days, it was last used in 1946 by the Ku Klux Klan in Georgia, which went out to mass challenge black voters. They successfully elected a Klansman as governor. However, the Truman government sent in the FBI to arrest the governor for violating the voting rights of black Georgians. But he was able to get out of the indictment because he had a collision with a bottle of bourbon and died before they could cuff him.
Now, Greg, is that the scene in the movie where you were actually down there where they would house the slaves?
Yes, and so there's many parts of the film. So one of the things you talk about the opening scene, let me explain.
Yeah.
So this is this mass challenge. So it's come back, the Ku Klux Klan plan. And by the way, the Ku Klux Klan, to cover their tracks, incorporated themselves as a group called Vigilantes, Inc., which is why the film's called Vigilantes, Inc. That's actually the Ku Klux Klan and their incorporated name. And now it's come back. It's come back through these Trump front organizations. Now, in the beginning of the film, you will see me with a woman in a red dress. She is an operative working for Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia. This woman personally challenged over 32,000 people in Atlanta, in Cobb County, a suburb of Atlanta. Personally challenged 32,000 people's right to vote and had them wiped off the voter rolls, their votes blocked, almost all of them. I got the list, and I went through it, and we called people, 800 people. Almost everyone in black or young voters, in other words, voters of color, a lot of Asian Americans, Hispanics, voters of color, the color being blue. And so I get into her house. Now, I do something that American reporters don't do. I do this for BBC and The Guardian, which is I will set up fronts. I will go undercover. I get into the woman's house under a pretext to interview her, and then I show her a photo of a young black woman. I say, you know this woman? No, I don't know her. Ever speak to her? No. Ever call her? No. Ever go to her house? Do you know where she lives? No. I said, but you challenged her right to vote. Her right to vote, and 32,000 other people. She said, well, I can't call 32,000 people. You can't, but you could challenge and take away their right to vote. All these black neighbors of yours.
No, real quick. Now, she can just there's no appeal, or they don't have to be notified that their vote has been challenged.
Yes, well, this is a very good point. Technically, here's the problem. This has not been done since the Ku Klux Klan did it in 1946. They took it for a test drive in Georgia in 2020, which is why we are able to get this film. And then they've taken it national this year. And so what's happened is that you get a challenge. Someone challenges your vote. You're supposed to get a postcard. Now, most people, it's junk mail.
Right.
Or remember, these people, a lot of people are absentee, and they don't get the postcard. They don't get nothing, and most people don't notice it. 98% of people who are challenged have no idea they've been challenged. They just show up and they can't vote, or they're given a provisional ballot, which will not be counted. Don't ever take a provisional ballot. They're placebo ballots.
Well, then what would you do? Okay, so I just checked to see if I was registered, right? I'm going to vote early. So if I go there and they tell me, hey, no, here's a provisional ballot, what do I say? They call Greg?
If you go to saveyourvote.org,
right.
We have in fact, we're speaking to right now on the other line is America's top voting rights attorney, and it's her 866 number. They have teams all over America ready to come by your side and help you out. The second thing is vote early in person, because if there's a screw-up, you can fix up. But if you've been challenged, you call your county clerk. Some clerks, and here's the problem. Let me give you one example. So let me just finish with the red lady in red. So when I confront her and tell her about the 32,000 people, and she says, well, I can't call them all. I said, well, that may be according to the NAACP, their top lawyer. I asked him. He said, well, this looks like this is a violation of the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871. This is a felony crime, picking out black people and just saying take them off the voter rolls, who you've never contacted. And as soon as I said that, she said, well, I'm Canadian. I'm from Canada. It's like, what? And then her husband actually jumps on me. She throws me out of the house. She's got ammo and automatic weapons all over the place. You have to understand, this is like a Gone with the Wind mansion. These are wealthy people, and they've got a loaded AR-15 right next to the door, leaning up against the door jamb. My local camera crew fled for its life. The only reason you have this on camera, and it actually comes off as funny on camera because no one in the end got shot. It could have been bad. But Zach D. Roberts, who is an internationally known photojournalist for conflict situations and war, etc. So he stayed with it despite the guns and the threats. And I just, so this woman confronts me at the door, and I simply asked her, so is this your legal voting address? And this woman dressed elegantly in red, the Nancy Reagan red with the high heels, swears at me like a sailor. I couldn't put the whole thing in the film. I'd lose a PG rating. And so that's one. And then there's a second vigilante you'll meet who actually dresses like a vigilante with the cowboy boots and hat, and he wears a holster with a 6-gun in it, pearl-handled 6-gun. And you think, well, this guy's a nut. He may be a nut, but he's also chairman of the Republican Party in Georgia. This is not, and he challenged 4,000 people, almost all of them black soldiers out of Fort Benning who were assigned to other bases. Now, here's the thing. If you're a soldier assigned to another base temporarily, you get your absentee ballot because you don't, when you're a soldier and you're sent to another base, you don't lose your citizenship. Even if you're a black soldier, you're allowed to vote. Even a black soldier is allowed to vote. But apparently not to the chairman of the Republican Party in southern Georgia. And this vigilante, dressed like a vigilante, one of the people he blocked was his mistake. Major Gamaliel Turner, 70 years old, one of the Pentagon's top experts on warfare of the future. He's assigned to California base out of Georgia, and he calls up. He says, "We're 2 days before the election to the county clerk and says, where's my absentee ballot?" And they said, "Sorry, Mr. Turner, but you have been challenged." He says, "What does that mean?" And they said, "No problem. Just come into our office, prove you're an American citizen, prove you have a home in Georgia, and we'll give you your ballot." He said, "So you're telling me all I have to do is fly 2,600 miles, prove I am an American citizen again, and then I can vote?" He said, "You talk to fools like that. I'm not a fool." He says, "This is Jim Crow. This is an African-American officer. He says, this is Jim Crow. This is no different than you're telling me I have to count the jelly beans in a jar. But you know what? They made a mistake because he flew 5,000 miles round trip. He did, and he brought in Mark Elias, the big attorney out of Washington, had to fly in, go to federal court, got his one vote counted. Imagine. The other 4,000 did not get their ballots, did not get their votes counted. And, because not every soldier could suddenly fly off 5,000 miles.
Yeah, most people don't even wait on a long line election day and not go through all of that.
And exactly. So what's happened is that this new vigilante voter thing where any person, any voter can challenge any other voter, it has to be in their county. So this group is like sending out these lists, 4,000 in Columbus, Georgia, 32,000 in Cobb County. Now, here's the danger. So you're supposed to be notified, but who gets notified? And here's the other problem. Under these laws, they can challenge you on the day before the election. So how do you even get notice? How do you even know what's going on? Most people don't even know why. And the lady behind the desk probably doesn't know. I mean, you have to call your county clerk to find out if you've been challenged. You don't even know why. So these are the things we're exposing. So one thing we did do, and you'll see in the film, I'm not giving away too much, is that we got Major so this vigilante, this GOP official who likes to pretend he's Doc Holliday. He plays or he portrays Doc Holliday. He likes to go around portraying his hero Doc Holliday, who, by the way, he blithely says, "Oh well, he killed 3 or 4, black boys." By the way, they were Union soldiers after the war who were swimming in Doc Holliday's swimming hole, and he just shot them dead.
And he just brings that up out of the blue?
Yeah, he brings that up. And he says, well, he's not a bad guy. He was actually a very sophisticated guy and a very good guy. He only killed a few people. And that's why Doc Holliday lit out for the Oklahoma Territory. And, and then after he says that, I said, do you know whose house you're in? He says, no, we'll meet your host.
Oh. Major
Turner comes out of the kitchen. We have this on camera, sits down next to him. I said, well, Doc Holliday, Mr. Chairman of the Republican Party, meet your host. This is Major Turner, whose vote you challenged. You've ever met him before? No. Ever speak to him? No. Well, would you like to offer him an apology for taking away his vote and making him fly 5,000 miles to get his vote? And he refused to apologize.
Wow.
But the thing is, now that was another one where there's a gun involved. He made a point that his gun in his holster was fully loaded. And so there was a moment of nervousness, believe me.
Now, is that one too where you kind of went undercover with him too and kind of
Oh, yeah. Yes, I do a lot of undercover.
How do they not recognize you? You're well known in voter suppression coverage. You got that hat. When people see your picture, they know you right away.
Can I tell you? Well, I got to tell you, we use all kinds of things to cover. And what happens is I will hide my hat, and someone will hand it to me, or I'll have it in a briefcase or something. And then suddenly, they see the hat, and those who know anything about who are involved in the political game say, "Oh no!"
Right.
And now they have a choice: do they run? Do they physically attack me? What are they going to do? So the lady in red throws me out of the house. There's guns all over. It was nasty.
Yeah.
This guy, he wouldn't, so he didn't pull out his 6-gun, thank God. But you see this funny scene because he's trying to show us how you pull a gun out of a holster. He can barely lift the thing. He couldn't get it out. And so, we weren't exactly dealing with Wyatt Earp here or the real Doc Holliday. But you'll see these scenes. So, yes, I do this strange undercover stuff. And sometimes I was at, for example, in Trump rallies, I don't go into the media box because they literally put you in like a cage.
Yeah.
And people just yell at you, and you can't talk to people. So I go into the Trump rally undercover in complete disguise. And my team goes in undercover to film and speak to actually the the Trump followers, and find out. There is something you really should speak to people, find out what is their issue. But it could be very dangerous. And while I've lucked out, my cameraman, who is much more in the mix and goes undercover inside violent right-wing groups like the Proud Boys, gets in there, and he's been beaten so many times, including by the cops. Mm-hmm. So you never know which side anyone's on. But you'll see in this old-fashioned detective reporting, which does involve undercover, which I can't do for U.S. networks.
Let me ask you this now. When they're challenging these voters, right, do they know in advance that they're black or that they're Democrats?
Yes.
How do they know they're black?
Well, in Florida it says BLA next to your name if you're black. Yeah.
That's right. They ask you that question when you're registering, yeah.
Yes, what's your race? And when I first went, my first investigation of vote suppression, I was investigating this Bush family finances because I'm a financial investigator. I used to be, so before I was an investigative reporter, I was an investigator, detective, So I discovered that I'm in London working for BBC and The Guardian, and I'm on BBC, and we're showing black people, in BBC, you were allowed at the time to show black people who weren't criminals, So we had all these black people saying, I couldn't vote, I'm in Florida, I can't vote. Now, in the end, George Bush becomes president of the United States by winning Florida by 537 votes. I'm thinking in my mind there must be a computer program erasing black people from the voter rolls.
Yeah, we've talked about this before. Hank Asher from IRB, and he went into partnership with ChoicePoint. And then after the election, ChoicePoint got a $1 billion contract to do a 9/11 DNA for 9/11 victims,
Yes, and what they did was I said there must be a computer program erasing black people, and sure enough there was. I got the disc. I got the disc from the office of Catherine Harris, then your Secretary of State, and sure enough, and then I keep seeing blah, blah, blah next to people saying, what does blah mean? Black. And I couldn't even get it. And I'm seeing they removed roughly, I have the list. It's not like I'm guessing. Yeah. I actually have the list of names. 58,000 black men removed from the voter rolls just before the election between Bush and Gore. That's how. So, yes, Bush won the election by 537 votes, became president.
Because they scrubbed the rolls. Yeah.
Tens of thousands of black men from the voter rolls. So this is now what they've done is after Florida did that, instead of being ashamed of that's stopping. I thought my reports had put an end to it. It was the beginning of it. It's almost like I feel like my reports were notifying the rest of the GOP. Here's how you do it. Use computers to remove people. So you have to understand, they're going into cyberspace. They're using artificial intelligence programs to pick out black voters, young voters, and figuring out how to get them off the voter rolls. And they scan Facebook. If you go on vacation, you're an African American, you got a picture of you in the Caribbean, and they say, oh, that person's in the Caribbean. They don't live in Florida. And I'm not making this stuff up. And they say, well, we're not really removing people because technically it's the state which blocks you. We're just telling the state to check. Well, there is not a county office in America that has the ability to do that. They can barely most of them can't meet the legal requirement of even sending you a postcard. They're not set up or budgeted. They have no means to do it. Because they're most county officials I've spoken to, and I've spoken to hundreds, only 2 or 3 out of 100 have ever had a challenge. It's usually 1 or 2 names. Literally, this woman put in 32,000 names. Another one put 4,000 names. Now, 10,000 names by Queen Mitchell in Florida, 10,000 in Philadelphia, one county. I mean, it's spreading. And here's the big problem, Ed. It was 88 voter vigilantes in one state, Georgia, in 2020. And it was successful enough, even though we were able to block it enough where Biden and Ossoff and Warnock could squeak through. And again, I wasn't trying to help them. I was just trying to let the voters, not the vigilantes, choose their president and senator. But it's gone from 88 vigilantes to 40,000 people have signed up with this organization, True the Vote Republicans, to get their challenge list. 40,000. They, as of 6 weeks ago, and this is 6 weeks ago, they'd already challenged 851,000 voters in 43 states, from Arizona, Texas, Nevada, Wisconsin, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Carolina. This, according to Mark Elias, who was just hired by Kamala Harris, the first time Democratic Party has actually taken on the issue of vote suppression. He says this is the number one threat to vote to the 2024 election. They're heading, as Martin Sheen says in the introduction to our film, President Bartlett, is that they, he's actively involved in investigating this, that they're aiming to remove 2 million people from the voter rolls by November. This is, and it's barely getting covered. There's a little squib in the Times about, there's these challengers out there, but they did not give the numbers, they did not give the threat, so the U.S. press is basically ignoring, as they always do, the issues of racial vote suppression. But Greg, this film lays it out.
Yeah, it's really important that if I show up to vote and they tell me, no, you're challenged, here's a provisional ballot, throw that away and get on SaveYourVote.org and call that phone number on there.
Yes, vote early in person if you can.
Yeah.
Check your registration right now at SaveYourVote.org, SaveYourVote.org. The first thing before you see the movie, it says check your registration.
Yeah.
If you've been challenged, you call your county clerk and say, I don't know who challenged me or why I'm off the list, put my name back on. And now some places will do that, some won't. It's all up to these clerks. And then if you do go to vote and they say your name is not on the list or you've been purged, you're not here, or there's a challenge mark, each county will handle this differently. Some will just remove your name. Then, now here's one thing that's really important. If you're in Wisconsin, Nevada, California, in fact, in 22 states, you can register on Election Day. So if you show up and they say, and you're in one of those states, you can say, don't give me a provisional ballot. I want to register right now. I'll register right now and give me a regular ballot. And also, if they give you a provisional ballot, we found in this great voting, the top voting rights attorney in America, Barbara Arnwine, said, tell them no, I don't want them. Give me a regular ballot. And a lot of these guys will say, here's my ID. Always bring photo ID, always, even if your state doesn't have that requirement. Bring proof of address like an electric bill and say, here's my ID, here's my address, give me a regular ballot. I don't know why I'm off. That's a mistake. And in many of those states, you can say, let me register on the spot. They won't tell you that. In fact, in California, they're not allowed to tell you can register on the spot.
Greg, let me ask you a quick question, because in Florida, you have to bring a license, a photo ID, and another license of your signature. So your driver's license doesn't count for both of those?
If it has your signature on it, yes.
Okay.
And if and it's very, very important to bring that ID. Make sure that it's not expired, which is kind of silly because you haven't expired even if your license is expired. In fact, the first ID case, which if you read some of my books like Billionaires and Ballot Bandits, was 10 nuns were blocked from voting in Indiana because they all had driver's licenses, but they were all in their 80s and 90s, so they didn't drive, so their licenses had expired, but it's still them.
Yeah.
So 10 nuns were rejected from voting in Indiana. That's the case that went to the U.S. Supreme Court, and that good Catholic choir boy Scalia said, so what, don't let them vote. And that was the case that allowed Indiana was the first state to ever require photo ID, even though in their entire history they couldn't cite one case of someone claiming someone else's identity. And then it spread to every GOP state in America. And again, I'm not picking on the Republicans because I'm partisan. I'm just calling them out because they're the ones who have this whole consistent program of stopping people of color from voting. And by the way, I have done many investigations of vote suppression tactics by Democrats too, but it pales in comparison to this vigilante. The Trump plan is the Klan plan of 46, except it's gone into cyberspace with people handing in spreadsheets, and they're not even looking at the names, let alone checking.
And Greg, isn't Georgia the state where there's, on the election commission there's like 3 Trump activists on there, and they can challenge the electors? What is that? Can you tell that story?
Yes. Well, you'll see in the film Vigilante, Helen Butler, who is the Georgia state's expert on voting. She was on the elections board. They passed a new law, SB 202, which allowed the governor to remove anyone from any elections board and any county elections board. So the governor, Brian Kemp, Republican, his first act after the bill passed was to remove Helen Butler from the elections board. And I said, now why? What's going on? She says, because elections boards determine when you vote, who gets to vote, how you vote, how they deal with these vigilante attacks, who they remove, and finally, it's those elections boards which certify the election. Now, what that means is on December 11th, and that's the new January 6th will be December 11th, what's called Ascertainment Day in the Constitution. On December 11th, each state must certify their election results and send them to the Vice President of the United States to read off the results of the electoral vote, and that's your electoral votes. Now, what Georgia is playing games with, and also North Carolina and other places, what they are doing is if they can, let's say Harris wins Georgia as Biden did last time.
Right.
Well, they've made it damn clear what their game will be is to not certify the vote. Either delay it so they can't certify by December 11th, and if they don't certify by December 11th, there's no electoral votes out of Georgia, none. If they block one county and and the state elections board, controlled by Trump, rejects the vote from one county, there will be no electoral votes out of Georgia. And in fact, the current Trumpite commission has said that in 2020 they would not have certified Fulton County, which we call Atlanta. They were going to leave out the vote from Atlanta, which Biden won by 250,000 votes. So if you reject Atlanta, there's one of two things happens. Either the electoral votes will go to Trump, or more likely there will be no electoral votes out of Georgia. And of course, if you do that in a couple states, that overturns the election.
Well, great. That's terrifying. Is anything being done to challenge this in the Supreme Court or something? Anything?
Have you seen the Supreme Court lately?
Oh, right.
Sorry.
Forget that. Yeah.
No, every voting rights attorney wants to keep it out of the Supreme Court. And here's an ugly thing. And you get to meet Helen Butler in the film. She explains it all. And then we go, and then I go confront the governor, by the way. The governor wouldn't speak to me. And so I hunted down his campaign bus. And then I met him you'll see it in the film. I go and meet him at the campaign bus, and then I get a body block because I'm saying, why, Governor, why do I have to sue you, which I did, in federal court to get the names of the black voters you removed from the voter rolls. By the way, I want a federal court case against the governor to give me this information. And, this is what I do. And you don't see American reporters do this. They say, the governor says no comment. If I took no comment for a final answer, I would lose my job at BBC. Because we don't take no comment for an answer.
You know what? And if you go to GregPalast.com and you watch this film, or if you go to SaveYourVote.org and watch the film, there is an option there to make a donation, too. So it really is important to support people like Greg Palast. He's not a young man. He's been doing this a long time, man.
Well, I have to say, I do appreciate the donations, because what we're doing, what we're taking donations now for is we're doing all these free showings. In Atlanta, in Wisconsin, I'm going, with all these swing states. And the reason I'm going to swing states is not because I want Biden or Harris, but that's where the vote suppression and the vigilante attacks are most severe. Interestingly, and so anything that you might put up, literally every $25 gets us a new local showing in Hampton Bays. We're working with Jesse Jackson to get out to all these churches all over America and warn African American voters, in particular the AME churches and the Southern Baptist convention, at least the more progressive end of that convention. This is very important. This is how we reach people through the church community, through organizations, through the NAACP, Black Voters Matter, et cetera. But what we do is we have to give them assets so that they can also, and we also turn over our investigative findings for their court actions, as long as they're not for a nonpartisan group. So this is what we do. But again, you'll get this information in entertaining form. Bring your popcorn, because it is a movie, and that's very important. That while it's entertaining, it's a lot of places are funny, a lot of places are heartbreaking, and you get and there's history in there that will just blow your mind.
Greg, just recently there was a situation in Arizona with about 190,000 votes. Then it was up to about 200,000. There was a glitch in the registration process where you didn't have to check off that you were a U.S. citizen. You familiar with that?
Yes. Okay. So the idea that you have to check a box, that you have to claim, first of all, under the federal law, if you have a federal form, it says that you are a legit voter and you're signing it under penalty of a felony prison time of 5 years if you file a false registration form. These states are now coming up with their own forms which ask things like proof of citizenship, all this stuff, and it is it's scaring people away from voting. There obviously a lot of it's going towards Hispanic voters, and yet Arizona, where they've made claims that there are 5 million illegal voters, and the big chunk centered in Arizona. This is the GOP making this claim, and Kerry Lake making this claim. By the way, you'll see me undercover at a Kerry Lake rally. I'm wearing a red, white, and blue cowboy hat.
I saw.
And when you see the film, but they have not. I said, if there's an illegal alien voter, arrest them. Arrest them. Why are you blocking 190,000 people from voting? If there's 190,000 illegal alien voters, go and arrest them.
Well, the interesting thing is,
they haven't arrested one, not one, because they can't find one. But they use it as an excuse to take out everyone named Jose Garcia.
Yeah. The GOP is saying that they're all illegal aliens, but it's only the same percentage of illegal aliens that would be there anyway. And the GOP wants those people to vote because they're mostly Republicans. but they're all saying, look at the Democrats, there's 190,000 illegal aliens. But then when they went to court, Arizona GOP says, no, we want these people to vote. And they declared victory when they won. It's the craziest thing.
Well, in Arizona, you actually have this huge split in the Republican Party. That's part of that story, because the wiping out the voters is the Kerry Lake faction, and the Republican Party establishment of Arizona hates the Kerry Lake faction. So they're in this tussle too. Remember, this is internal politics. But and as you know, there was war between the governor of Georgia and Trump, and now they're kissing and making up because it's to Trump's advantage to make sure that the governor helps him steal away these votes to win Georgia. Trump is going to have a tough time, honestly, winning Georgia because of the change in demographics. It's become a majority-minority state. And they are really, one thing you'll see in the film, that they're really going after, and you'll see this in the film, they're going after the Asian American vote. It's the Kim Crow wipeout. So the Klan plan is being applied not only to black people, but to Asian Americans and Hispanics. And the Asian American community has 15 million eligible Asian American voters, and they used to vote majority Republican. Now they vote like the black community, 75% Democratic. And so they've gone after the Asian American community, and they say, okay, David Kim. Oh, David Kim voted in Texas. David Kim also voted in Atlanta. So it must be the same David Kim voting illegally twice.
Outrageous.
Well, David, there are literally tens of thousands of David Kims. But so you might say, well, David Kim is just a common name. It's not a common name for a Republican. Jose Garcia, there are 852,000 Americans named Garcia. And they they were eliminating everyone named Jose Garcia, saying this guy's voting multiple states, multiple places. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Even if their middle names don't match. And so I'm laughing about it, but it may sound, because it's so goofy, but these are things I uncover as an investigative reporter, and you'll find this in the film. It's both funny and sad and terrifying,
yeah.
frustrating.
But now you also
You
debunked the whole 10,000 Mules thing. So why don't you explain that to us?
Yeah, there's this film 2,000 Mules,
2,000.
and in which they are this is the group, by the way, that creates the vigilante list for Trump. Now, Trump released this film at Mar-a-Lago called 2,000 Mules, and it's claiming to get on camera black men paid $10 each by George Soros, of course, and Mark Zuckerberg. Doesn't matter that, oddly, Zuckerberg, is Republican, but he's a Jewish billionaire, so is Soros, so that's all you need. That Soros and Zuckerberg are paying black men to forge and stuff into ballot drop boxes these fake ballots. They get $10. Now, and they purport, because every single drop box has a video camera on it. Every drop box in America is on film for security, to make sure that the voter is, you see the voters, make sure there's no tampering, etc. Well, this film seen by 10 million people, 10 million MAGA nuts who believe that black men are stuffing ballot drop boxes, and some Hispanics. And they show, for example, they say, oh, here's this one guy who's gone to 28 drop boxes. They tracked him through geospatial stuff, and they've got video of him. Well, while he was supposedly caught on camera at 27 drop boxes, 3 times in their film they showed that guy at the same drop box. It turns out he's an executive with Verizon in Atlanta, and he was putting in his and his family's ballots, which is what they encourage you to do. And he's called a mule.
Yeah, they even described him as OJ. OJ caught on film.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh, one of these. One of Trump's big backers is this is Salem Media. Charlie Kirk, who has a giant multi-million person following. And he says, when he sees this black executive from Verizon sticking his family ballots and go back to his car, he says, there you're seeing O.J. Simpson fleeing from the scene of the crime. He's a black man. They're just saying he's a murderer fleeing the scene of a crime?
Things have gotten horrible.
And we bring on Latasha Brown of Black Voters Matter and say, look at that. He's a black man putting a ballot in the ballot drop box. So he's obviously, they call him a mule. They call him a criminal. Full stop. And then, she shows Georgia is 50% non-white, about 51% roughly. And they show Brian Kemp, the governor, signing the bill to suppress the vote, and he's surrounded by all these legislators and officials, every single one. You have 12 men, no women, no one with any tinted skin, while he's signing this bill under a picture of his family's plantation.
Oh my God!
Where his family kept slaves. And you'll see I do some very fancy graphics where I kind of appear within the frame, and then we tell you the story, which people are shocked by, which is that the governor of Georgia, his family, the reason he's one of the wealthier men of Georgia is that his family was the first to bring in Africans in chains to the Deep South, to the Georgia Territory. That's literally the first family to bring slaves to the Deep South. And what people don't know about American history, the Deep South, which is called Georgia Territory, which is Alabama, parts of Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, that territory banned slavery by law. The Deep South banned slavery, unlike the rest of America. And the Kemp's ancestors got a dispensation from King George III, the guy that we would soon get rid of, to bring in Africans in chains, And that was the end of it, because all these small farmers that were there before, the reason that they'd outlawed slavery, that they knew that they themselves would become enslaved. They all went bankrupt and ended up themselves working on these plantations as overseers. That's the only job that they could get. And this is how the governor made his millions, owning giant tracts of Georgia pine, which is then pulped into toilet paper by Georgia Pacific, which is owned by the Koch brothers, who then back the governor. So you see the circle of poison, finance, history, enslavement, and even with the Koch's backing.
And in his
the
commercial,
governor couldn't win unless he jacked with the voter rolls.
You show his campaign commercial where he talks about, I drive this pickup truck in case I have to pick up some illegals and throw them in the back of the truck. You know, what is going on,
Take
man?
them myself.
Yeah, what is going
myself.
on? You know? And by the way, too, back to 2000 Mules, the producer of that, the filmmaker, Ganesh D'Souza, is a criminal. That guy's a convicted
he's one
felon.
of the few people in America ever convicted of election crimes. He was making illegal campaign contributions. He was in prison. Trump pardoned him.
Oh, he did? Yeah.
And so Trump pardoned him. So then he went out and made a film about how Trump was cheated out of his election. Yeah, right.
Greg Palast, are you nervous that this election is going to be stolen by these kind of tactics?
100%. I mean, that's why I'm working with Black Voters Matter and Jesse Jackson. That's why I'm speaking to you. We have top voting rights attorneys on the phone at this moment with the rest of the staff. And, so we're very, very concerned. And look, again, it's not about Trump versus Harris. It's about right versus wrong. Yeah. It's about voters versus vigilantes. This has got to stop. And so and that's why the film is out there, so it sticks in people's head. I want you not only to go to saveyourvote.org, saveyourvote.org. I want you to pass that link on to everyone in your contact books, your massage circle, whatever. And by the way, if anyone wants to show the film and they need not just, you're streaming for your computer or phone, we do have, all the downloads, Blu-rays, DVDs, all kinds of ways. If you want to have a home showing or in your church, as Rainbow Push is doing, or at a theater even, we have the technical ability to help you do all that, because it's all about saving our votes. And so saveyourvote.org and saving your vote. I mean, it's that simple. I want your vote to count. And people go, and one thing you'll see in the film, you think, well, that doesn't happen to me. I don't worry. I've voted the same place 50 years, whatever. You'll meet in the film. I'm literally at a Georgia voting station in Atlanta. I'm watching one black person after another being turned away. You'll meet some of them on camera. I'm witnessing this. A woman shows up elegantly dressed in a walker, a 92-year-old woman who's been voting at the same place for 50 years. And they tell her, your name's not on the voter rolls anymore. Goodbye, get out. They send her out into a storm. It was a storm in her walker. And her granddaughter's with her. Hysterical that they took away her vote after 50 years. And so they invited me to their home, which was down the street from the polling station, the home that Brian Kemp, the governor and secretary of state, said she didn't live in anymore. And there's a picture on the wall of her having dinner at that home 50 years earlier with her cousin Martin Luther King. And I said, you knew King? He says, my cousin. He came here every Sunday after services. This woman was thrown off the voter rolls. Obviously, a black woman voting at the same place 50 years. So please check your registration and fight it out. And here's the problem with provisional ballots. Don't believe the lady behind the desk. And I'm not picking on them because they don't know. Remember, they're not They're volunteers for the day, getting,
Yeah, my mother-in-law did that job.
Money.
She has no idea what's going on.
So they don't know all the rules. So they're told if someone has a problem with their registration, hand them a provisional ballot. Now, a provisional ballot, in the last election, are you ready? 10 million provisional ballots were given out. Of those, 2.7 million of those provisional ballots, over a quarter, were rejected and not counted. 2.7 million Americans lost their vote because they believed that their vote was going to be counted on the provisional ballot. Here's the problem. Don't take, because they will reject it. And if it were just random, it wouldn't make a difference. But you're 300% more likely to be shunted to a provisional ballot if you're a voter of color than if you're white. 300. So that pile is overwhelmingly voters of color. And are you ready for this? If you're a black voter, and this is according to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission, if you're a black voter, the chances your ballot will be rejected for a technical reason, whether it's provisional or regular ballot, is 700% higher than if you're white. And 700% higher than if you're white. And what I've seen is states like not only Florida, where you see this, and that study was done in Florida, but Ohio, Wisconsin. In fact, we have in the film, I go to Wisconsin into the snow. Where's the missing ballots? 130,000 voters were challenged. We mapped it, or I should say, the Washington Post mapped it for us and showed that the precincts of challenge were exactly matching the precincts of black voters in Milwaukee and the student housing in Madison, Wisconsin, at the University of Wisconsin. So they target student housing and black voters. And by the way, the Washington Post, I thank them for doing that for us. I don't thank them for spiking the story and never running it. So I put it up.
Greg Palast, we only got a couple of minutes left. Is there something else in this film you find really important? Vigilantes, Inc., America's new vote suppression hitman, that you want the audience to know before we leave?
Yeah. You follow me and Major Turner hunting down these vigilantes and hunting down the history, and you meet his family, and you'll find out why you better take some action, not only protect your vote, but everyone else's. Because if Major Turner can fly 5,000 miles, you can take the extra effort to protect your vote. So saveyourvote.org. You've got to do that. Voting is no longer as simple as just showing up and marking a ballot. No more. You better work at saving your vote. It's important. The only reason they want to steal it is because it's valuable. Otherwise, they wouldn't bother.
And the other one we need to save is gregpalast.com. You need to go there and give them a donation to help support this work. It's very, very important work. Madison, Wisconsin, at the Barrymore Hotel, Theater, Barrymore Theater? Yeah, Theater. Yeah. October 17th. It will be with Jesse Jackson in Chicago between the 17th and the 25th. And it'll be in Atlanta, Georgia on October 25th. Greg Palast, man, I can't thank you enough, man. This is great information. This is so important. It's so important, man. Thank you for everything you're doing.
And thank you for bringing my voice back to my home country. I appreciate it.
Nah, man, anytime you got an open door here, man, I'll give you the microphone. Just come down and talk.
Wow.
Okay. Anytime I can get you, bro.
I won't be flying into Florida this week.
That's fine. Listen, Greg, thank you so much.
I have so many friends. I'm very concerned. So really take care of yourself. Let me know if you need some help. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Bye.